crying, everything. But I want to say just a few things. One, I want to thank Eddie for his honesty and his integrity and his willing to be self-critical publicly. And I also want to say that, you know, and I too am a beneficiary of Cornell West's generosity and brilliance, and I claim that proudly. But I want to say that these battle royales that we have, you all know what battle royales are. You remember Ellison, it's when in Invisible Man, when they throw the black boys in the ring and have them fight each other for the entertainment of the white powers that be. It's Booker T and it's Du Bois, it's Martin and it's Malcolm, even when they don't exist in manufacture. They are distractions. And they are painful when we engage in them. Those of us who really, they're distractions from what we're really up against, and they provide entertainment for our enemies, because we aren't that far apart in what we want for our people. So I just say that. That's why they hurt me so badly, because I know the brilliance and the commitment of all the individuals on every side of it, and they all are committed to our people. And finally, the other things that I will say is that, once again, I want to stress this, that it's not, we don't always take popular stands. We have to be willing to be unpopular, not just be unpopular so that we don't get access to the White House. You know, we've been centuries without access to the White House. But sometimes we might say things when we're unpopular with our own people, even though we love them. Think about the people who dared stand up and say Clarence Thomas ain't got no business on the Supreme Court. There was some of our people who didn't like that, because we should be supporting a black man who's going to be, and then what has he done for us? Right? Not a thing. Voting against us every step of the way. And talk about using your voice, the man is silent. When I saw Angela Davis get booed walking into Abyssinian Church because she had a critique of the Million Man March. There are going to be some people who are going to be mad with some of us who are about to have a critique of our brother's keeper, as much as we think it's important, right? But that's the choice we make when we decide this path of being an intellectual, right? When you talk about homophobia, when you talk about any of those things, it is not, you don't take the popular road, right? And when you have access, we hope you bring us with you, you know, but that should not be a measure of your value to black people. And so I would like to say, let's stay on the path, let's not be distracted, let's recognize when we're in a battle royale and ask ourselves, who is really benefiting from this? It's not us. It's not us. Thank you so much for your time and your attention.
We have time for a few questions, and again, I'm going to ask you to keep your questions very brief and to the point. Not a lot of commentary, but go ahead.
I'll be as brief as I possibly can. Basically, I'm a foot soldier, but my name is Keita Williams, and I'm the founder of CivilRightsAgenda.com and HumanRightsAgenda.com. I also am going to add, particularly, I feel like I'm back at Lincoln University and all these professors and great minds. I'm very proud to tell you that after 20 years after leaving as a sophomore at Fisk University, I returned full-time to an HBCU, Lincoln University, and now 1 year away from graduating, and 2 majors. I'll take the question in. I had one particular question. The first question was for Dr. Thompson, because he's with the White House Initiative on HBCUs. Obviously, I love HBCUs. But then Dr. Claude said something about being behind the curtain. I don't know if people understand exactly what you meant by that. What do you mean? When you talk about when you saw some things happening behind the curtain, and you had mentioned Tavis Smiley, what exactly did you mean?
All right, let him respond. Thank you.
I don't want to go into the particulars. You know, it was a reference to Finest Time by James Baldwin, and Baldwin talks about being a childhood preacher and being among older black preachers and coming behind the curtain and beginning to see dimensions of what it meant to be in black church that had nothing to do with God. That had nothing to do with lifting up the spirits and uplifting the people in the pews. So it was behind the curtain that he began to see that it wasn't love motivating the gospel. And so it's at that moment where he says, if the concept of God doesn't make us larger, doesn't make us more expansive, then it's time we got rid of it. Right? So it's about kind of having certain kinds of illusions, scales fall from one's eyes and seeing. So part of being among in this elite space, right? And I'm going to say this generally, this is not just about taxes, right? Part of what it means to be in this elite space is that you gain access to certain things and you witness certain things, and your character is tested. Will you? There it is. Will you stand firm? Will you stand firm on your principles? Or will you deal with that was in front of you? You see, so part of what I was referring is, it's not, when Bill O'Reilly talks about the race hustle, he's doing his thing. But there's a hustle, trust me.
Thank you.
Can I say about that? I got to say this because I've been a benefit. Look, Tavis Smiley has been critical of me as well, but in a principled fashion. So I'm saying this to let you know, Tavis Smiley has provided most Negroes who got something to say right now in America an opportunity and a foundation for that. So let's not dismiss Tavis Smiley. I'm not denying the legitimacy of what the perception of Eddie Glaude is, but I'm saying to you, Tavis Smiley has given platforms to people who can be critical of him, which is a measure of his greatness in the sense of opening up a dialogue. And before Obama came along to open up some public space, Tavis Smiley for 10 years did an incredible job of offering the opportunity to engage. He's been critical of Sharpton, he's been critical of Dyson, so I ain't saying that's just because that's my boy. I'm saying, but let's be honest about the historical record and what that man did with black in America for 10 years to really articulate some serious concerns for black people as well. We can't throw the baby out with the bathwater in that.
Nobody's throwing away, nobody's doing that.
I understand that, but I'm saying, but we make it look like he's a hustle.
Brother, I would be very clear. But we got to go to the
Well, I appreciate the dialogue. My name is Caprice Rhines, and I'm from Long Island, which is the most highest segregated neighborhood in the nation. And I've been accused of trying to split a race that I have nothing to do with because I am not a registered Democrat. And I say that, and I say this to intellectuals. There has been a statement that has been made that you all talk to one another, but you don't talk to our kids. And the problem is, and I say this to Mr. Peterson, I applaud you because I've never met you, I don't know your work, but I heard your work and I validate you, and I wrote something on my card to you because I live in Hempstead, which is a majority-minority community. Okay, and I say this because our children are dying. We have every negative statistic in our area, and without putting POC behind HIV/AIDS money, our kids we weren't getting the money. The white white male were getting the money. They were using our statistic for getting the money. And I say this to you.
What's your question?
My question is, as the intellectual, under the Common Core standard, the new Common Core, will you begin to write books that will allow our kids to be critical thinkers and come to the schools? As a PTA mom, I can make it required reading.
Okay, let's get a response. Dr. Darling.
Yes, thank you very much for your concern. Adelphi is in Nassau County,
yes,
so I know this issue front and center, not only for New York State, but specifically for black jurisdictions within Nassau County. We run at Adelphi, we have a Center for African, Black, and Caribbean Studies. We engage the School of Education in teacher training and outreach to neighborhood schools, particularly Uniondale, Hempstead, the black schools in Nassau County. There are limited range of things that any of this outreach can engage, but we are keenly aware of this challenge. We sit and talk about it, and then we invite people from the community into our programs, meetings. We have an ongoing collaboration with community leaders. Now, that being said, at the core of some of this issue is redistricting in Nassau County, right? Because that's the core power. So there's the issue, there's the symptom, there's a symptom of a deep problem.
People being brought out.
And there's its recurring manifestation. And then there's the central issue of how is leadership constructed in Nassau County? What are the voting districts? And what is the redistricting issue? That ties us to larger national issues of voter registration, vote dilution, voter suppression. Now, some of you may not think that's connected, but how districts are formed determines allocations of spending.
That's right, and that's why I'm running for Congress, because they stole my brother-in-law's.
All right, we understand. We got a whole bunch of people.
That's okay, but I would love to talk to whoever would like to talk to me afterwards.
Okay, very
please.
good. Thank you. Next. Thank you, Dr. Darwin. Yes.
Yes. My name is Glenn Hudson, and I'm out of Richmond, Virginia, and Dr. Dyson, you were at my church, St. Paul's Baptist Church in Richmond. But my question is the transformation of intellectual power to economic power in our communities. Because I used to work at the Treasury Department, and $3.5 billion a year was being allocated, and black banks got less than 10%. HBCUs, white colleges get twice, 3 times the amount of money that HBCUs get. So if you can talk a little bit about the transformation of this intellectual power to economic power in our communities, because we need capital in our communities.
Very quickly, I'll say this. One of the biggest things that we have not talked about, and there's a couple of Supreme Court decisions. One is the Shelby decision, but 2 is the recent decision in terms of campaign finance reform, right? And the black community, we need to have outrage about that. Both of those decisions, because one, in 2008, black folks lost 53% of their wealth, which was in their homes. They were disproportionately assaulted in terms of mortgage crises. Even under Obama, and this is respectful criticism, has had 3 different housing plans, and they have failed both the larger white community, but they've been devastating for African American homeowners. That wealth has not been regained, even though there's been skyrocketing Wall Street wealth, right? So when we think about black communities, the Supreme Court is very important here. The Shelby decision sets up voter ID to tamp down votes at the grassroots level. Not just voter ID, but what governors are doing are ending early voting in states like Florida and Ohio. So that's where they're assaulting from the bottom up. The top-down assault just came last Wednesday. That says that rich people, which is mostly rich white people, can spend as much money as they want virtually in the coming election cycles. And so what it did was eradicate decades-long campaign finance reform that go back to Watergate, which was 1972, 73, 74, right? So what that means is that there's now a constitutional protection, because they said it's First Amendment protection, for rich people to buy and influence politicians as much as they can afford to, right? And at the same time, at the bottom up, black people and poor people are having less of a right to vote than ever. So 50 years after the Voting Rights Act, which is going to be August 6th in 2015, poor people are having less access to vote, and rich people are having more access to buy the vote. And this is happening even though we have an African American president, and we have a Justice Department led by Eric Holder that has actually done heroic work on behalf of the disfranchised. Because the best appointee by the president has been Eric Holder, and his conviction in terms of holding people accountable but protecting the rights of African Americans. He realized that SNCC and black women and these black men fought and died and struggled for the voting right, and he is determined to protect that. And he's also been great at the federal level in terms of criminal justice reform.
But I think his question